All right. I think like more people will be joining in, so I think we're already in 3 minutes, and I don't want to delay this any further. So like I think we can get started. We are also live on YouTube now, so we can expect a few people to be joining in from there as well. So hey everyone, I'm Aniket. I take care of community at Deffolio, and we are here for the fourth workshop of the On-Chain Summer Buildathon workshop series. And today we are going to be talking about the discovery track with Kanishk and Dalton. We have Kanishk and Dalton here from the Fleek team, who would be more than happy to take things ahead. So if you have any questions, there's a Q&A box below. At the beginning, we're going to start with like a quick demo, some discussion around the track, and then if you have any questions, or you are kind of interested in learning any tips and tricks that could help you like polish your hack, feel free to drop it in the Q&A box, and I'm sure like Kanishk and Dalton have something exciting already lined up. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Kanishk. You can take things ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction, Aniket. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and to talk to all the builders building on the Onchain Summer Buildathon. We've already started seeing a lot of amazing projects and ideas popping up on our Discord and our DMs, and we are super happy to support all the builders building. So that's great. My name is Kanishk. I'm the head of developer relations at Fleek. And with us, we also have Dalton Coder, who's the head of protocol engineering. Dalton, over to you.
Hey, everybody. Like Kanish said, I'm one of the engineers building Fleek Network. I'm kind of just here to provide some support for Kanish, and if any engineering questions come up, to help out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dalton. Now, with this said, we have a lot in store today for all the developers that have joined us. We are going to go through a basic introduction of what Fleek is and what it provides. We're also going to go through how you can hack using Fleek and how you can build your entire products and projects using Fleek. And most importantly, I'm going to talk about Fleek functions. Now, what are Fleek functions? How can I use them? And how can I build using them? We are going to talk about all of that today. And before we leave you, I'm also going to discuss some judging criteria that we are going to focus on. And most importantly, some tips for you to make sure that you grab that bounty. With this said, now I'm going to start sharing my screen and slowly and steadily just cover all these things that you must know. For all the participants, can you see my screen? Can you give me a thumbs up if you do so? You can mention that in the chat, or you can just give an emoji reaction.
Yep,
okay,
I can see your screen.
Okay, then all good. Nice. Perfect. So with this said, let's get started. The name of the track is Discovery, and the focus here is on finding good projects, finding good products in the on-chain repository and the on-chain registry, and how can you provide more tracking to them, more user engagement to them, and make sure that these good projects get the fame and get the public sight that they deserve. Today, we are going to obviously talk in depth about the discovery track. There are some ideas that I have cooked up for all of you that you can take and that you can build with us. Secondly, we are also going to have some discussion around things that you have created, because we have been in touch with a lot of developers and I have some ideas that deserve a shout out. Then there's going to be a walkthrough of what Fleek functions are, how do you install them, how do you use them, how do you create and deploy them. I also have a quick sample of what calling a Fleek function in a Next.js app will look like. And finally, there's going to be some judging and criteria discussion with an AMA. So stay tuned. And if you have any questions at any moment in time, please make sure that you interrupt me. You can raise your hand, you can put that in the chat, or you can simply unmute and start speaking. It's very important that by the end of this workshop, all your questions are answered and you are set up for success. And that is our responsibility. So let's get started. First things first, the discovery track. Now you must know that Fleek is an edge optimized cloud platform that helps you effortlessly build, ship, and scale your performant applications. We already have been at the forefront of hosting your web apps statically. And with Fleek functions, we are moving towards building full stack applications and providing all sorts of support for them. Now, in this particular buildathon, we are looking for solutions that help build awareness and track engagement for projects in the on-chain summer registry. At this moment, you all know that Base has been receiving a lot of traction, right? There are coins being launched every day. There are projects being launched every day. And while we support all these projects and while we support all these amazing initiatives, it is extremely important that we track the engagement as well. Right now, if we launch a project, but we have no idea on the on-chain traction, and we have to use third-party tools to track that. That just adds on to the kind of efforts that we need to put in to scale up our application. What if we can build solutions that give us all these answers right away, right? What if we build solutions that we can use to track all these engagements, to spread awareness, and essentially help all these applications get viral? This is the kind of engagement, this is the kind of solutions and the projects that we are looking for. And to do that, the answer that we have for all the devs is Fleek functions that help you build serverless solutions for all these things that I just mentioned. Fleek functions are essentially serverless functions. They're popularly known as Lambda functions as well, that do not require an entire servered environment. And you can simply just make a JavaScript function, deploy it, and that will serve for whatever logics you write inside the application. Now, how do these functions work? We'll cover in a second. But if you are interested to knowing how we built them, what is the architecture behind them, and how do we make them so performant, do make sure that you stick around till the end, because I will be sharing more information and links where you can study and get back to us with more questions if the need be. So essentially, this is the discovery track where the focus is on discovering amazing products. I can see somebody has raised their hand. Yes, Sugam, what's up? Let's see. Okay. Sugam has raised his hand or her hand, but I feel that they are still typing. You can put your question in the chat box and we'll continue. If you can unmute in the meanwhile, that'll be great as well. Awesome. So let's move forward. Now, I wanted to cover some ideas that we cooked up for all the developers who are listening to us. First and foremost is a real-time analytics tool. Now, remember, I did mention that you must be able to track these users on your application or track these users on chain. So therefore, this real-time analytics tool can be really, really beneficial. You can make instant data processing softwares using it that can use edge functions and process all the interactions that users are doing with your application. If you click a button, an edge function can trigger, which can tell the user or the founder of that app that, hey, this particular user at this timestamp triggered this particular function. And this is a good way to track user engagement. If I were to draw some parallels in the Web 2 world or in other softwares that we've seen this happen, tools like Mixpanel do this very nicely. And we'd love to see a Fleek function powered alternative to that scales effortlessly. Next up, another idea that we had was event driven engagement. Whenever you do an activity on chain, it obviously emits an event. Now, while your Solidity scripts can read those events, while you can log those events while you're running your node logs, it would be really cool if we can make a solution that can see those events triggering when a user clicks on your application or signs a transaction on the wallet, and through that on the dashboard that a person can build, I can see logs from those functions as well. So tracking those events is also very important, because a lot of activity in the on-chain summer registry is happening on-chain. So just tracking what's happening on your front end or back end is not enough. We need to see what's happening on chain as well. And that is where this solution sort of comes into the picture. You can also strategize dynamic content delivery here, which can automatically adjust and deliver content based on where the user is, what the user is interacting with, and what are the choices that the user picks throughout your application's flow. Lastly, but not the least, some detailed user profiling would also be really, really cool. Now, based on what your user is doing on chain or based on what their past has been on chain, you can trigger edge functions that can continuously analyze what the user's choice would be and suggest cool things as well. Remember, I mentioned that some users have already started building, some developers have already started building cool applications. Now, one of my friends, his name is Nader, he built a solution sometime in the past that was able to track what the user's past performance has been on different chains and kind of what the balance is on their wallet, and suggest them where they can invest, right? Where they can invest more money. He also made a solution wherein you have these AI prompts, and these AI prompts are served through an edge function. And based on the prompt you select, a video can get created. So he used AI with Fleek, and it was a really, really cool app to see. So therefore, make sure that you are tracking all those things. Make sure you're building towards this. And if you have any question around your idea itself, feel free to hit me up. So Sugam asks, I want to know, I have developed some application in Angular. Can I submit my application because I don't have experience in the backend side? That's completely all right. Yes, you can submit your application, but just make sure it has something to do with the Fleek Edge functions. Now, this is very important because we already have all sorts of templates that you can use to deploy this app on Fleek. Now, what will qualify your app for the bounty will be if you have Fleek functions integrated to it. You can just make some fetch calls and ideate towards how you can bring more awareness to products on the on-chain summer registry, and I can help you with that. So if you have more ideas, feel free to share them. Otherwise, we can hang around later and talk about those as well. Now let's move forward. It is time I walk you through how a Fleek function should look like, what are some methods that you can use, and where is the documentation for these functions in case you get stuck. So with this said, I would like to shift my screen and show you all my VS Code. So let me just expand my screen really quickly, right? I will close these tabs that I don't need anymore. And there we go. Now, Fleek functions are specifically JavaScript edge functions. If you are a developer who has any experience around JavaScript, you can directly get started with Fleek functions. Let me hide this. Perfect. So in this particular folder, the folder's name is Fleek functions. I just made a file called index.js, right? Nothing too crazy right now. We've all done this before in our journey when we learned coding. Now I made an arrow function, and essentially what I'm doing in this function is just returning the parameters passed to this function. Very simple, right? Before we get started even with the parameters, let me show you how you can run and create and deploy your entire Fleek function. To do that, for now, let's just get rid of that parameter statement and return hello Fleek. Extremely simple, right? We're just returning a simple string with 2 words in it called hello Fleek. Step number 1, you need to install the Fleek platform CLI, right? To do that, the command you need to run is npm i-g. You must globally install it so that you can access it from whichever terminal you open or whichever VS Code instance you open. npm i-g at Fleek platform/CLI. Now, the second you run this, it will go through its entire process. It will, download all the essential dependencies. And then after that, once you run Fleek-v, you should see 2.8.3 as the current version for your particular project. Now, this is extremely important because this is the current stable version, which will provide you the best developer experience, and there shall be no bugs when you create and deploy your function. Now, with this, we know how to install the Fleek function CLI, and we also know how to see the latest version for the CLI itself. Now, of course, the Fleek CLI has a lot of other capabilities, but I'd love it if all of you can focus just on the Fleek functions for this particular buildathon. Let's continue, and I'll shed more light on other aspects of the CLI later on. So we already have a function ready, right? It is now time that we actually create it on chain. To do that, what you do is Fleek functions is the command. It is the prefix to everything related to the Fleek CLI. Fleek functions create -- name, and the name of this function can be anything, right? I'll just call it onchain function, and I'll call it onchain function 1 because we'll be creating some more functions in today's demo. When I press enter, the request goes through, and as you can see, the function has been created successfully. Perfect. Now it is time that we deploy this function. To do that, I go again, Fleek functions. Please remember, this is the prefix. It is very important to write this and then follow it with a command. Now we deploy, and this time in the deployment, I will give name. Of course, name is going to remain the same. So I'll go on chain function 1 and path. Now path is very important because it will tell Fleek CLI that where is this particular file that you want to put on chain, and you want to ensure that it has the edge function ready, right? So in our case, it is right here. It is the index.js. So I simply go /index.js. Simple. The second I press enter, the CLI goes into its building mode. Then it uploads all these functions to IPFS. Now, the second these functions goes to IPFS, Fleek can pull it from IPFS, cache it around the network, and make it available for however you want to use it. We are currently checking for availability through our gateways, and we provide you these public gateways so you can access your file and build seamlessly. Once the availability is done, you can see that we give you a link through which you can access your own function, and it will perform right as you have defined here upon the top. With this, let us execute this. So I will run this function. It will come up on your screen as well. And as you can see, it loads up in just a couple seconds and will say hello Fleek up on top. There you go. Function works perfectly, absolutely no flaws at all. And this is absolutely amazing. Now with this, we have learned how to install the Fleek platform CLI, how to create the function, and how to deploy the function. Please note that the two most important flags that we have used here is the name flag to give the name of the function and the path flag to define where exactly this function is and how can you use it. Now, you must have noticed that there is another link that you get that you may or may not put into your applications. We provide you this link so you can directly call the Fleek network, and from one of the nodes you can fetch up your file and serve it on the internet. This is just one of the two ways that you can, put this link into your application and send things off to production. That's it. Now with this, you know exactly how the Fleek CLI works. If you want to see your previous deployments, what you can also do is Fleek functions list. When you run this command, you will see all your previous deployments also available. I was testing a couple of things before this session. So as you can see, Onchain function is here. My test script 8, 7, 6, all of these are also available with, of course, the URL to access those scripts. Now, that's great. Now we know all these things perfectly. And it's time that we make something a little bit more tricky. I hope you all are ready. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. I'll take a minute here so that all of you can digest this information and ask any questions. There it is. How is the Fleek CLI configured to your account? Very good question, Johnny. Absolutely simple. Each time you install the Fleek CLI, it will prompt you to run this command called Fleek login. Now, when you run this command, it will ask you to log in. I think I already have logged in, which is why it did not prompt me. But you can click on this link and confirm your access to the Fleek CLI. The second I press confirm, as you can see, you are now logged in. This is how whatever account you may have on the Fleek XYZ application, you can simply use the same one, create the same projects, and make sure everything works. Got it about Fleek? Can we connect my MetaMask in VS Code for contract? Now that is a tricky question. I would never recommend you to put your private keys this way. But if your application and your solution warrants it, you can do that because we do provide private variable support for your applications. Now I will cover that in a second when I will also share the link to the documentation. So don't worry about it. Thanks. Are there any VS Code extensions to help with development? There is one. Very good question there, Johnny. Now the best extension that I have used for, running my Fleek functions and testing them out is Thunder Client. As you can see, I was running it before our session, and I just downloaded Thunder Client from the extension store. Just type Thunder Client, and you'll be able to see it. This is the one I have used. And in Thunder Client, what essentially happens is you can select the type of your request, and you can just run that request right here. The second you send it, you'll get your response back right to you. This is a good extension, and I highly recommend it. That's it. That's all you need to know to get started. Now it's time that we cook something a little bit more interesting. In the starting, when you saw my screen, this is how I was trying to teach how we can bring query parameters into my Fleek function. For those asking for the link to this particular, wait, let me see if extensions allows me to share it. Copy. Can I share it this way? Everyone. There you go. This should help everybody who's asking for Thunder Client extension. All the best. Anyway, coming back to Fleek functions. Now moving forward, let me teach you how you can render your query parameters inside your applications. We'll start off once again from scratch, right? We'll go Fleek functions create -- name. That's it. Name, this time we'll call it Onchain function 2. Enter. This is going to create that function for me, and it will ask me to select a project. For those of you who have who have previous extensions and who have previous projects on Fleek, you must select the project in which you want this function to live in, right? So essentially, all I'll do is I'll just select my first project. That is where I want this to live, and I'm set. Now we'll go Fleek functions deploy. Sorry, deploy is not a flag, it is a command. Deploy dash dash name on chain func2 and dash dash path. Now, who here is following me? If you're following me and you have any questions or if you have any problems, let me know. I can help you specifically. And of course, the path is going to remain the same, index.js, and I press enter. Can we see the function that we created through the CLI? Yeah, for sure you can. I'll share more details on that just in a minute. Awesome. So now here you can see that the shallow continent wrapping functions is my production Fleek function. I click on it, I run it, and here I can see that params is not defined. Now that is a good error. You know why? Because when I go here and in my URL, I mention params, and this time I say hello Fleek. I'll also copy it because I want to share it in the chat later. You will see hello Fleek rendering right here, which is also what I'm returning from my function, the query parameter. Right here, I see it rendered. Isn't this perfect? For all of you who want to try it out, here is the function. It should work for everybody. Just copy paste it on your browsers and it should work. No need to answer now, but can you cover kind of projects? Yeah, absolutely, Johnny. I actually showed a slide in the starting in which I covered the kind of projects we'd like to see, but don't worry at all. Right after this demo, I'll show that to you in a second. All right. So with this now, we have seen how we create basic functions that can return strings. We've seen how we can make functions that return query parameters. And please note, whatever is the name of this particular parameter, it only matters in what you add into the URL. Request should remain the same, and that is how you can access your URL. Finally, if you want to make things a little bit more creative, right? You want to return entire HTML pages through your Fleek functions and make it into website or web pages. Let me show you how you can do that. So essentially, I'm just going to wrap this in template strings. And here, I'm also going to wrap this, wait, my bad. Yeah, wrap this like this. For anybody who's worked with JavaScript before, you've made Next.js apps or React apps, this must be very, very familiar to you, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in an H1 tag and make it bold, right? Let's see how we can do that. So H1, and here also I will close my H1 tag. And this is just a demo. If you want to render full websites through this, that is also very, very interesting. And we can also bundle this particular JavaScript function with other bundling methods like Webpack or ESBuild. And if anybody is going that route, do let me know because I have more documentation that I can share, but it is beyond today's scope. So anyway, I have wrapped it in an H1 tag. Now let me wrap it in a B tag, and I will just be able to make this bold. There we go. Let's see, template URL. Temple URL. No. Template URL, or rather template string. I'm going to send you the link of this particular edge function. Don't worry, Sugam. All right. So yeah, again, I will clear my terminal because I see a lot of things are happening there. So this time I'll go Fleek functions create, because we're making the third function and the last function for today. Create dash dash name on chain function 3. Enter. Now you already know what will happen. Function created successfully. I want to give brownie points to somebody who can tell me what the next command on my terminal will be. Would anybody like to share that? Take your time, type it out. I'll have a sip of water and give you a minute to tell me what the next command I should type to deploy this function would be. Anybody? Come on. Okay, somebody sent me a new message. Very good, AD. Very good. That is absolutely perfect. Great job. So AD says that we should do Fleek functions deploy, which is absolutely correct. And then you just need to put up the name of your function. Name of my function is onchain func3. And finally, the path of my function is /index.js. Enter. And with this, all done. It bundles my code. It uploads my code to IPFS. From IPFS, Fleek can fetch that particular hash. It can cache it around the network and make it available globally. And finally, when you click on the link like so, you should be able to access your function. But please note, this will be very interesting to see because it will also throw an error that params not found or params not, see, there you go, cannot read properties of null. Would anybody like to suggest how we solve this? Now we know how to solve this problem. We just did it in the previous function. Anybody? Come on, come on. I'll give you a hint. We add param value at the end of the previous request. Absolutely perfect. I'm pretty sure AD will get all the 20 ETH that we are offering for a bounty, but a really good job, I must say. So you're absolutely right. Just go to the end of the URL, write params, and this time you can say hello Fleek. I will just wrap these up in quotes. I run the request again, and there you go. An H1 tag in bold renders in front of us. The cool thing here is that if I remove these, I will let that stay. But if I remove this and I render it again, you can see that I can also get rid of my quotation marks that had come up. So this also allows you to make sure that you can modify the request as and how you please and put them in your particular applications. Now with this, I can see that a lot of people are following me very nicely, which is amazing. I will close this and I will go to a Next.js application now. I will format it to make it look good. And I will, of course, run this. So I'll go npm run dev. It might ask me to change. No, it didn't. Perfect. Now, please note that in this application, this is literally Next.js boilerplate. I have not done anything, but it says Hello Fleek here. Now, this is very interesting. How did Hello Fleek get in here? In this part of the walkthrough, I will be teaching you how you can take a particular Fleek function, put it inside a Next.js application, a React application, a Vue application, a Svelte application, any application, and make a fetch call to it or make a an API call to it and get that back in your system. What I've done here is I'll get rid of these commands because they didn't really get me the result I want. Essentially, I'll be using Axios and I'll be using useState and useEffect. Now, I'm sure all of you know state management, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me whenever. This is a boilerplate Next.js app. All I've done here is make a get data function that I run whenever the first page of the app loads, which is my page.tsx. It will load get data the second it opens up. And get data makes a get request to this particular URL. For anybody wondering what this URL does, I will drop it in the chat and you have to tell me what it does, right? And essentially, whenever this URL returns status code of 200, I can console log the data, which is going to be hello Fleek, and I can also set it on my application. I'll just zoom in a little bit so all of you can see perfectly. Get API URL. Yeah, I just dropped it in the chat, Sugam. It's right above your message. All right. Now, this is your Fleek function. Please note that whatever functions you create here can be just, you can just copy this from right here and put it in your get requests. This is completely up to you and you can modify it as you please. And finally, whenever you run your React apps or your Next apps or whatever apps you create, you can log them anywhere on your screen like I've done here. As you can see, I set first, which is my variable. I set it right here, and then I render it in my app right here. Simple stuff, right? Nothing too crazy. So with this, we now know how to create functions, how to maneuver around the CLI, and also finally, we know how to put those functions in our Next.js app. If you have any confusion throughout this segment, let me know, and I'm more than happy to help you out. Also, if you want to explore some templates, I have some templates for you right here. For those of you who need some help in building their front ends, who don't know where to start, you can just pick the Next.js boilerplate front end that I have also used in the demo I just showed you, and simply attach your function calls to it. That's it. With this, we come to the end of the walkthrough that I had for everybody. To everybody who needs the list of this Next.js, that's here. Now, we come to the most important part after the walkthrough, which is what is the judging criteria? What is Fleek looking for? And how do I make sure I get that bounty? So for that, I will be closing this and I'll be going back to my PowerPoint presentation. Now, the first and foremost judging criteria that we have is that you must use Fleek function to be eligible for the bounty. And the app that you create or the solution that you create, it must be deployed on Fleek. Now that those are the two major criteria that we have. If you don't use the Fleek storage CLI features or the Fleek storage SDK features, that's completely all right. But you must use Fleek functions to be eligible. And to AD asking, this should be fine with plain React web pages. Yes, it should be fine with plain React web pages. It does not need to be Next.js. It can literally be anything that you please as a front-end framework. That is why I mentioned that you can use Svelte, Vue, Astro, Hugo, any framework that you like. And we already have templates for all of them. So whichever developer you are, we have support for all of you. And if you still have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or DM me later. Your projects should be able to solve an actual problem, right? If in your pitch you can present data around it that, hey, listen, X amount of users come on chain every day to these particular applications, but these apps cannot track what happens to the users in a week, in a month, in a year. That is a viable solution. It has data attached to it. So make sure that you solve actual problems. And if you have data in your presentations that can support what you are building, that is absolutely perfect. The idea and approach should be relevant to Fleek. By this, I mean it should use edge functions. The project should have a strong technical foundation with focus on discoverability. It must provide value to the Onchain Summer registry, and it should be a viable solution that any product on the Onchain Summer registry can pick up and say, maybe for my discoverability, I should use it. Or maybe to track my engagement, I should use it. It does not matter if it is a hackathon product and needs a little bit of polishing. That is what we are here to support you for. So make sure that your focus is on discoverability. And finally, adequate attention must be paid to the user experience and developer experience of your product. If you wish to create a CLI, you just saw how the flow of a CLI should be like. If you wish to copy it, if you wish to learn more on how we built it, I am more than happy to help you out. But do make sure that the DevX and the UX of your project is pristine, or at least something I can work with when I'm looking at your project's submission. If it is broken, it's not extremely bad if it is broken, but then you should have some documentation that I can work around with. Finally, you must present a unique solution or a novel twist on an existing concept. Don't copy paste something. It is very easy to find those particular projects. The documentation is a bit confusing. Do you mind showcasing where in doc can be read? Absolutely, absolutely. Don't worry at all. I'm going to open the documentation in just 1 second. And finally, demonstrate how the project can be realistically implemented. The final submission that you make, if you can put these points in your README, in your documentation somewhere, that is absolutely amazing. I would love to see how you envision your project being used in real life projects, because that will help us decide who wins the bounty and who doesn't. This is an extremely important point. And finally, as I just said before, your README should be clear. There should be some documentation on how to run your project. If there are some environment variables that I should be aware of, please let me know. If I have to use a third party to get those environment variables, that's also fine, does not matter. We are going to spend a lot of time doing our diligence for your submissions, and we do expect to see quality. Finally, this is all that I had prepared. Now I'm off to answering some questions that all of you may have, starting off with the most important one, which somebody asked, which is ideas. So for, I think the name was Johnny. Johnny, for you, I'm just displaying the ideas once again. Real-time analytics to help people track engagement and see the awareness of their app grow is extremely important. And if you can build a dashboard that is somewhat similar to Mixpanel, but helps people see things happening on chain, that will be amazing. Secondly, event-driven engagement for all sorts of activities happening on chain and all sorts of events being triggered on chain. If we can set up a way through which we can see these events happening and trigger them on a particular dashboard or a particular UI that you can build out, that's absolutely amazing. Now, you already know how to put these Fleek function calls into your Next.js or your JavaScript application, so that should not be a problem. Finally, any sort of detailed user profiling should help us a lot as well. Are there any database function on Fleek? Database function on Fleek function. You can make one. That is also a viable solution. If you can attach a decentralized database or any sort of database to Fleek functions and render it, that would be really, really cool. And we would love to see something like that happening out. Travis is asking, will this Zoom be sent out to everyone's email, and will the judging criteria be sent out? We can probably put this judging criteria on the Fleek's page on Devfolio's website, but I will let the Devfolio team answer that for you.
Yeah, just to add on to that, so like all the workshop, basically all the workshop videos are being added to like Defolio YouTube. We are streaming it at the same time, and in like the past emails, you must have received the link to the playlist, so you will find this video in the playlist as well, and you can just the kind of like rewind and check out the judging criteria as well. And of course, as Kanish said, like specific things we can add onto the Defolio page as well.
Amazing. Amazing. That's extremely helpful. Thank you so much, Aniket. Also, to answer your database question, I think it would be valuable for all the developers to know that whenever you run the deploy command like so, let me just pull up my screen a little bit. Yeah, whenever you run the deploy command like so, you can also make an env variable deployment with it. To make sure that your env variables work, they should look exactly like they would in a particular JavaScript application. But just make sure that you write env flag before it, and then whatever your variable is called, you put that right here. So for example, in my case, my variable is called, for example, port. Port is an important variable. We've seen it used often in backend applications. And then I can just give whatever value I want to give to my port. So just remember to use env as the flag right here. Let me just zoom in a little bit more so you can see properly. This is how your private environment variables can be put into Fleek functions and made to work perfectly. I felt this would be useful for people working on database-based solutions. Great. Nice questions, everybody. Any other concerns,
Hey,
questions? Yeah.
Kanish, can I just add on to that last point you made? Because the default behavior of Fleek Network, we will deploy to IPFS. So don't put any environment variables on there that you are actually private, because someone who's scraping IPFS could essentially grab this function and then get your variable. But we do have a helpful flag.
Dalton, I think.
Sorry, I got muted.
Yeah.
It's the flag is -- private when you're deploying your function, and instead of going to IPFS, it'll go to a private server. It's a little bit more centralized this way. We have a more decentralized approach to this in the works. But for now, if there is any actual private information in this function, pass that private flag. And instead of going to IPFS, we can protect those variables in your function.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that help. Lovely. So for any hackers who are building, make sure that you pay attention to this and you don't make these mistakes as you are building. Any private information will be going to IPFS, so make sure you use the private flag so that does not happen. Thank you so much, Dalton. Our contact information is being asked. I can just share our emails. I'll share mine. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can also find us on Twitter, and you can also come to our Discord. I can share the link in a second. And through that, you should be able to access, come in touch with us, share your project ideas, etc., etc., etc. Great. Any other questions, guys?
I do see one open in the Q&A box. I think it's from AD. Would it please be possible to talk about on-chain registry? What it is? Very confused about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So Base has Onchain Summer Registry has been developed by Base. It is an absolutely beautiful list of projects that have contributed a lot to the growth of the Base ecosystem. Let me just drop in the link for the Onchain Summer Registry for you very quickly. 1 second. And essentially, what we expect is that these solutions that exist on the Onchain Summer Registry should be able to pick whatever you've built so far and just add value to them. So we are on the discovery track, and that is where they can grab awareness from you, they can grab metrics from you, etc., etc. This is the link that we can share right now for the Onchain Summer Registry, and that's basically it. Koala. Okay, let me see if I've missed any. Okay, see. Oh, yeah, perfect. So Koala, the documentation is a bit confusing. Dalton did share the documentation. I'll just quote his message once again. Essentially, this will help you with all sorts of things moving forward with Fleek functions. Private environment variables and everything that I've discussed is all right here. Can Fleek functions import other JavaScript modules? Yes, of course. Yes, of course, they can. What you can, this is where you can use some sort of bundling mechanism. So do make sure that you, for example, if you start with Webpack, your config can make sure that whatever NPM modules you install with your application, When you build them, they form a single function that can be copy pasted as your entire module and can be then released for people to use. What I can do is I can share a link to one of the functions that we had created. Let me just see if it's public. If not, do DM me after this session and I can get in touch with you to help you with the Webpack config that you must create for this particular solution to work. Other than that,
Hey,
the answer is yeah.
Kanish, if you do upload through the CLI, deploy through the CLI, it already has the Webpack config. So if you do any imports in your function, it will work if you use the CLI. If you want to do it another way and upload directly, then you would have to configure your Webpack a specific way, and we will have a guide coming out for
Perfect.
that. But
Perfect.
just a note on that for anyone that's doing that, if the runtime that we're using is a Dino runtime, almost all node specific modules are polyfilled. So if you do hit any errors, it's something that isn't polyfilled correctly. When you're bundling, please share them with us. This is a beta thing. I think our bases are covered, but we'd just like to hear any issues about bundling and imports that you have.
Absolutely. We are building with you here. So let's make sure that you share any issues and we will patch those up with you right away. Can Fleek functions import ethers? Yes. Yes. You could also try Web3.js. That's also a good module, and we have used it, and we are sure it'll work. Awesome. Any other questions, guys? Make sure in this section you can just unmute and start speaking as well. It does not matter if you are typing. You can just unmute and start speaking.
Yeah, I don't think like people directly have that option, but feel free to raise your hand and I'll be happy to bump you on stage.
Oh, okay, sorry. Then all good, all good. Yeah, for those asking Twitter, sure, I can share Twitter. You can reach out to us here. But if you reach out to us on Twitter, just mention that, hey, I'm building on the Onchain Summer Buildathon, and this is a particular concern or a particular question I have, and help me out. Great. What is the most security concern to create a Fleek app? So there's no security concern as such. Just make sure that you pay attention to the private variables that we've mentioned. And apart from that, you must know that all functions that do not have the private flag will be going to IPFS and not to the centralized solution that we have storing your private variables. Apart from that, everything is good and there is no major security concern. If you happen to find one, do make sure that you reach out to us and we'll patch that up for you very quickly. I think somebody has.
We do have like one person on stage with us. Hey, Lando, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. I was a bit late coming in, so I guess I missed a lot of the things. Just wanted to clearly. So basically, it's Fleek is basically like a Web3 hosting, like a Google Cloud platform for like Web3 that's peer to peer. Is that what I'm getting from this?
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
Platform. Yeah.
And the base on a lower level, it is basically IPFS is used to store and fetch the files, and that's why any particular private variables need to go through a centralized server that you guys are running to keep everything secured.
So essentially, IPFS is one of the data origins that we use. Fleek is modular enough to plug and play into any of these data origins and ensure that wherever the developer has built their application, wherever they want to store their application, they should be able to do that. But for now, IPFS is the most stable one we have. And I'm just sharing a link with you on a blog that we wrote that defines how quickly and how efficiently Fleek can scale and more nuances about our architecture.
So I just wanted to compare. So you guys are similar to like Lighthouse for like for IPFS, similar service. I don't know if you're familiar with Lighthouse.
I am. So Lighthouse provides decentralized storage, more prominently just IPFS storage, and that is one of the functions inside our SDK and CLI. Using the Fleek CLI, you can also store things, you can also retrieve those stored things. But for the purpose of this particular buildathon, we are emphasizing only on using Fleek functions as a whole.
Okay. Just a final question. Okay, it's clear. I get it. And I know you mentioned you have different support like React and the front end, whatever we can use, it's up to us. Do you also support React Native? I just asked just the auxiliary question.
So we don't have like a template for React Native, essentially because it's a mobile thing. You have to download it via Play Store, or you need to send me an APK. However, you can still make fetch requests for Fleek functions in your React Native application, and still be eligible for the bounty.
Okay, but on web it's fine. React is fine, like you mentioned. That we're good to go with your support.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Amazing. I think those were really, really good questions. They helped us go much more beyond just the scope of this particular buildathon. And we love those kind of solutions. We'd love to support you in the longer run. Thank you for asking them. Then what situation I need to pay to Fleek looks all free? So we do have payment coming in very soon. Essentially, you would be paying when you would be paying. That would happen in just simple US dollars. So you don't have to worry about any nuances of tokens or any things like that. You can just straight up use like you would use any cloud platform, and pay like you would pay for any cloud platform that exists today. It's just that Fleek would be much more efficient, it is very performant, and would probably be much more cheaper as well. So those are some things you can pay attention to. I've also shared two very important guides that any developer who has questions around the architecture implementations can look at, and make sure that they are set up for success. Can you share app ideas around SocialFi within an app? That's actually a very good question. Again, so with every SocialFi application, when your user onboards, you can't just always keep going to your database and logging the number of users there. Your product teams would need dashboards that can actually see what users are doing, where are they doing, what are pages that are getting more traction, pages getting less traction, or even on-chain activities that your users are doing that get more or less traction. In my experience, I've used Hotjar to do this. I've used Google's GTag managers to put them into different places in my application and use it. However, an on-chain solution to this, or a Fleek function powered solution to this, would essentially be a function that is wrapped around these buttons that you are tracking users with. And whenever these buttons are clicked, your Fleek functions are triggered, and through that you can see, okay, how many users clicked on login, how many clicked on, I don't know, accounts, finance, whatever. And that would be a good use case to track engagement and track activity for SocialFi applications, and be a very strong project for the discovery track winners. Good question, Hiro Yuki. I really, really support.
Hey, can I plug a SocialFi
Yes.
idea that I'd like to see? Farcaster frames. I'd love to see someone make Farcaster frame on Fleek Network. We could. I noticed most of them are on Vercel, centralized Vercel. Let's get it a little more decentralized. I think we have a good platform for that. So that's a good one.
Absolutely. Thanks for bumping that up. I almost missed that. So Farcaster frames on Fleek, that would be beautiful. And again, very, very eligible for a bounty. How does the API handle authentication? Does that have API keys? See, again, API keys, if it's a private API key, you don't want it to share it. Make sure you use the private flag with it. OAuth tokens, again, private flag with it. Another method, private flag with it. For any sort of authentication purposes, I would say private flags, but I would also say authentication is not something you want to send off as a Fleek function. Authentications usually use SDKs. Dalton, if you differ here, let me know. But that's what I would say, that it should not go over a network call. It should be wrapped up with an SDK, because you're essentially using a lot of users' private data. And yeah, that's about it. What are the rate limits for the API? How many requests can be made within a certain frame of time? I'm not sure if we have any set limits. If you come up with a limit and you tell us, hey, it's crashing at this number, that would be a really cool thing to see, because we couldn't find one so far. So yeah, no rate limits. Yeah, Dalton.
We left it pretty open for experimentation for this next month. So there's not much limit. So you got 15 seconds is how long your function can run for. We kind of want to see people do crazy things and break things. So it's pretty open and it's free. So I would give it a try to break it, report back to us, things like that.
Yeah, if you break it, that'll be really fun. We'll probably interview you if you break it. I'm just kidding. No, we won't. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for all your questions. I'll hand over the mic back to Aniket. For all the support here, I thank the Defolio team as well. For any support that you may need after this, feel free to reach out to us. Over to you, Aniket.
Thanks, Kanishk and Dalton, for joining in. I think like we had quite an insightful workshop and great series of Q&A as well, especially like like the questions that were coming in, Farcaster frames on Fleek. I think like that is something like really cool and worth exploring. So I'm sure like the builders at the Buildathon did take away certain key insights from this workshop. And once again, like it was great hosting you folks. And yeah, I think like that brings us to the close for the workshop. If you have any questions regarding the discovery track or on Fleek, there is a dedicated channel on the base Discord for the discovery track where you can ask your questions. Or as Kanishk also mentioned, just feel free to drop in to the Fleek Discord. I think like Kanishk, if you can just drop it again so that it's bumped up for everyone, that would be really helpful.
Absolutely.
And yeah. Any closing notes, Kanishk and Dalton, for the builders?
In terms of closing note, we just want people to make sure that they focus on Fleek functions. That is the most primary way to grab a bounty. We hold our hackathons at a very high standard. We always feel that we want to support projects that are breaking the barrier and actually bringing valuable products to life. So if you're a dev like that and you actually want some support, we are the best place for you to be. We'll provide you all sorts of support. And with that, we are excited to see what you cook. Dalton, anything from your side?
Well, I did just want to real quick answer Lando's question. If they're not in the docs right now, I'll get them there today. But it's really just a private flag when you run Fleek functions deploy. Just -- private instead of going to IPFS. It'll go to our centralized wrapper that we have at the moment. No var equals val, just private at the end. You don't need any value there, Kanish, just private.
Yeah.
Your whole function code would be private at that point. So you could even hard code the environment variables into the function at that level. The link will never be exposed because it'll go through our proxy. And then the only other thing that I will add is reach out to us on Discord. Don't think that you have to build a project specifically for us. If you already have a project that you're working on, run it by us. We'll take a look. We might be able to make suggestions. Hey, this part of this could be enhanced with Fleek functions. It could be faster. It could be cheaper. It could be more decentralized. So if you have a finished product or an idea that isn't currently using Fleek functions, feel free to run it by us. We will help you implement. We can make suggestions on how they could help benefit the project. But yeah, thanks everybody for your time and listening.
Awesome. Thanks, Kanishk and Dalton, once again, closing this up. And as for the attendees, like next up, we have the creator track with Zora tomorrow being at the same time. We're going to be doing it at 10 a.m. PT on 13 June. And the next office hours with the base team will also be happening tomorrow. You will be receiving another email shortly after this webinar with like the link to this video as well, and also like the details for what's next this week. Once again, thanks Kanishk and Dalton for joining in. Thanks builders also for chiming in. All right, see you folks.